All right, welcome everybody to our Valentine's Day special. That's
Is it?
right, love is in the air. And so, for that time of year, we thought it'd be a good time to review the perks of being a wallflower. Now, this right here is courtesy of our friend Rusty, who sent
I have
it
my
to us.
copies
He sent
in
one to
other.
each of us over in
Mm-hmm.
the Tarqaron Cross Otaku Brothers gift exchange. We've done a few of those. This was in the most recent one. He sent us a
Mm-hmm.
few things over the couple of gift exchanges where he's like, if you get the chance, it would be a good review. And so it's like, it's a good time. It's a good time to review it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the season for it, right?
It is the season for it. Yeah,
Um, yeah, I didn't really know anything about it. I've heard the name before,
me either.
see the people starring in it, but didn't know anything. But as always, we're gonna go into our gut check. That's how we start all our reviews, where we give our initial score, how we're feeling about it right now, and then we'll do a review, we'll discuss, and we'll lock in final scores at the end. Okay?
Mm-hmm. All right.
All right. 3, 2, 1, flip. Wow. 8.
9.
That's good. That's some good
Mm-hmm.
scores.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So it is hit for me.
Uh,
I was shedding tears on this
yeah,
movie.
I cried. Yeah, I cried multiple times watching this. Yeah, I love this movie. I think some of my, I think some of my only real maybe criticisms of it have almost nothing to do with the movie itself and have everything to do with culture that happened outside this movie after this movie, because I did some looking up and I was like, oh, this explains why all these other movies came out and were really successful,
Mm-hmm.
because this came out and was really
Really?
successful. Mm-hmm. And it was really like, this movie was like a real Tumblr core hit. Like, this was
Uh
like
huh.
super big
I bet.
online, which explains why there are lines from this that I'd heard before
Hmm.
and I'd seen before, and it just never, none of it ever registered. I'd seen the tunnel scene before, which I guess I knew it was from this, but I've seen like gifs of that. So it was like really big. Um, it was like it's a real cult hit, at least in terms of people of our age. Maybe a little, just a tad younger than me, but um, it's the zillennials, I guess is what they call them. They're basically like younger millennials. They're the between Gen Z and millennial.
You can't
Um,
have a category for between
no, well,
generations.
it's well. So the reason that they do that is because like older millennials and younger millennials, like there's a lot of shit that I don't relate to with older millennials. Like
Yeah, but
there's
isn't that the
it's
case in every generation? You take
no,
the top and the bottom.
not really. Not to such a drastic degree as can kind of be tracked in terms of like personality traits and trends in terms of what the general people like. I, yeah, I don't want to get into all that right now, but um, needless to say, this movie was very popular with them because they were very online people.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of, I think it's interesting because this movie's set in the 90s, but I felt that there was tons about it that I could kind of relate to, and that I feel like what one of the reasons why it was so successful is because people who were in middle and high school in the time when this came out also could heavily relate to a lot of it. Um,
Yeah.
so, um, but I mean, I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. Um, the it's definitely like sad boy movie for
Yeah.
sure, but in a way that like that I love that at times. Um, when I'm in my feels, when I'm an emo Alec, this is definitely like
Sappy
the
little.
type of stuff that
There's like sappy
yeah,
stuff, and then there's like kind of dramatic moments where it's like, I just think you're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen, and then pulling
yeah.
for the kiss, kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah.
it is pretty sappy and saccharine, but it's like there's a tinge of melancholy and just pain behind everything.
Hmm.
If that makes any sense, and that's just like that type of stuff just really it really resonates with me really a lot. Um, so I really liked it a lot.
For sure. For sure. I liked there's like a couple standout moments. I like some of the lines that I wrote down, a couple of them. And yeah, I like the performances, you
Yeah,
know. Ezra was actually really good in this.
Ezra Miller was amazing in this, and
So,
that's actually like to me it was sort of a tragic thing to see because it's like, damn, there's a lot of stuff in this that like kind of speaks to his situation in like a lot of weird ways, and how there were no lessons learned from by him
all right.
in this movie, like in the sense that like Ezra Miller the actor didn't really stick, nothing in this movie stuck with him. I guess you could say, um but which is very unfortunate, but
But he was great. Like the dynamic that they
yeah,
establish early on is great. And Emma Watson, this is
yeah,
2012 Emma Watson.
this is just
It's
fresh off Harry Potter.
yeah. And what's his name? Logan Lerman. What do you think? What do you think
Yes,
of him?
yep.
You like him too?
I Yeah, I thought he was wonderful. A very I It's like a subtle and understated performance for a lot of it because he is like he's kind of a quiet kid, but I think that
Yeah.
that was it just worked. He did such a good job.
He captured
Very
the
sensitive,
energy, the
captured the sad boy energy. Yeah, for sure.
sad
Um,
boy, shy, a little anxious
yeah,
energy all mixed together. And he's the wallflower. That's what it
right.
is. But yeah, it definitely hit for me. The way they wrap everything up.
Mm,
It's definitely a very effective movie. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've grown more and more to appreciate movies that make me feel things. That's always what I look for. Make me feel something. And this movie
mm,
definitely made me feel something. So
hmm.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I liked even a lot of the smaller side performances. I thought were really good. Um, I really liked Paul Rudd as the teacher.
Hmm.
I thought he was great. Um, yeah, I thought he just did such a good little job with, he's only in like a handful of scenes, but um,
Yeah.
it was really good. And well, he's the one that kind of gives also probably the most poignant, maybe to the degree where again slightly overused and maybe ruined online over the period of time.
The fuck
So
is going on?
apparently the electrical issues haven't been resolved yet.
Uh,
That's what they came and anyway. Um, Probably to the degree where it was sort of ruined online because everybody just overquoted it. It was just like I'd heard it before. Like I'd heard the line where it's like
which one?
we like we accept the love we feel we
Right, right,
deserve.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very
But I
cool.
also think that's probably the most poignant like message of the whole thing
Yeah,
because it's true. I mean, that's the thing is that that's true.
and
Like
also,
that's how people
yeah,
live a lot of the time.
yeah, it's like that. That's a big message, but also like Emma Watson's the prettiest girl. That's also another message too.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's an unfortunate
That
moment.
scene was
It's like
crazy. I'd never seen such
it's
a harder fumble. And it's a
yeah, that was a
miracle that
big
he made it out of that with like
yeah,
still friends with all of them at the end of it.
yeah. That's a pretty big fumble because man, he did not
Like what?
he did not see the well. It's because it was like he was too focused
Wild.
on he. This is an interesting moment. I would think that he's almost too focused on himself because it's a weird thing where he was like that's one of the whole things where it's like you're so focused on helping other people that you don't like do anything for yourself, like you don't ever like learn to love yourself. You're trying to fix everyone else's problem that you're not fixing your own. Well, this is a situation where it was actually like a blind spot because he was kind of too focused on himself. because he saw in his fantasy where he said truth or dare, and he said truth, and it's like, how's the relationship going? And he's like, it's awful. I pretend that one of us is dying of cancer so that so that I can look forward to not having to be in it anymore, which is very funny. But then it switches back to reality, and it's like, kiss the prettiest girl in the room. But I also thought it's like that's kind of a fucked up dare, if you ask me, because it's like.
There's nothing fucked up about it. It's a layup for the person to just kiss the person they're with.
It is true. It should be a layup, but man,
I like how he accidentally ended up in a relationship. Also, that was funny too.
Yeah, I guess he just didn't make it obvious enough that he was not interested in her, even though this is like it's funny because like I was never in a relationship in high school, but I feel like I would have been this type of person that would have been too awkward to know how to break up with somebody also, if I had ever ended up being in one, because I was too awkward to ever ask anyone out in general anyways. So like it's kind of a miracle I didn't end up like accidentally in a relationship. I also had like the smallest. I went to a tiny private school, so it was a very, very small dating pool there. So I was just an
copium,
and I was also an awkward nerd. So what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, no, like I would say I wasn't as awkward as he was, but I did relate to the point of just kind of being there and present and just watching things going on for the most part. You know, being a wallflower in some ways.
Yeah. So there was actually, I felt it's interesting because I knew people at my high school for like the longest time. You know, so like me being in high school there was definitely still some elements of that I could relate to, but it was almost more being a freshman in college I could sort of relate to that sort of isolation and like weird being on the fringe, being a wallflower. I was not like, yeah, I mean, hell, I stayed in my room basically all the time. Even when I was a senior, I was just in my room, same dorm, the entire 4 years of college. So it's like there's parts of that I could definitely like relate to in that regard too. So.
But it was nice that the movie wasn't like him just being awkward the whole time and then just like finally breaking out of it. It's like pretty early on he makes pretty clear and conscious efforts to break out of that. You know, like he's putting himself out there more and more, doing more things. Yeah. He's quickly into this friend group, you know, like he's already doing way more than the stereotypical like awkward, shy character does. You know,
yeah, like he does drugs like kind of early on.
He does drugs, which is like
he does drugs, which is like crazy. Awesome. That's crazy that this movie went there, but
like he'll see Patrick Ezra's character, see him sitting over there. He actually goes over there and engages with him, other than like, you know, the normal stereotype. I feel like you just constantly see them looking, and then someone has to bring them in, and there's like an element of being brought in, but he's active in making that happen too. So that's pretty refreshing.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was kind of funny that he was just kind of just frank when he was stoned. He just kind of like let his filters go, his inhibitions go, which is, I mean, that's kind of what it's like when you're stoned or you're drunk. You do kind of just, particularly if you are already a little bit of a guarded person, it's a little easier to be a little less guarded when your mind is in an altered state. So I thought it was funny, but it was also like, that's pretty, yeah, that makes a lot of sense that you'd just be saying whatever.
Yeah. But I love how Mary Elizabeth, well, first of all, we got the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is the craziest shit. Like, he gets thrown into this production, and then just the worst situation you could put a guy in with his crush there, like just doing this whole seductive scene with him. It's crazy. Yeah. It was crazy situations he found himself in here.
If anything, that might have been the least relatable thing in the movie. It's like I don't I don't know many high schoolers that are like, yes, Rocky Horror Picture Show. I know like a lot of old people are really Rocky Horror Picture Show fans, but I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe this is a thing where it's like I just live in too small an area of the world.
Maybe.
But because I'm like, do teenagers really like Rocky Horror Picture Show?
I mean,
maybe I don't.
This specific
I don't know.
group of teenagers in the
yeah,
movie,
they loved it. They loved it. Yeah.
They were all into it. That whole friend group. So it was just funny. He just continued to be put in these positions with Sam, Emma Watson, and then Mary. I just said her name, Mary Elizabeth. She
played Mae Whitman, who's a voice actress extraordinaire, but she's also an on-screen talent as well.
But she asked him out to the Sadie Hawkins dance, and then one thing leads to another, and he finds himself fondling breasts and in a relationship he didn't want to be in. You know, it's crazy. I really liked that scene though.
Yeah, I did too.
It was no, they did not just do the switch the girl out classic. He's picturing Sam there.
Yeah.
Going in for the kiss. You know, they did that a couple times.
I liked the I never thought I would say this, but I'm tired of touching her boobs. Which is crazy to me. I've never I can't relate to that whatsoever. At all. I've never gotten tired of that and I never will. So but
he just went like all the way with her, and then it was in a relationship with her. Just he had no interest apparently. It just happens.
Yeah, pretty much.
Really did her dirty there with the prettiest girl moment. And,
messed up. That's not messed up, bro. Don't do that. You go for the easy layup.
To hear that they had apparent history with previous boyfriends as well.
Yeah. Okay, I thought that to me, I was like, why didn't anyone tell him? I was like, okay, I guess he hasn't been knowing them for a long time, but like, I feel like somebody should have just mentioned that somewhere along the line, the way, you know, like even Sam to him be like, just so you know, like, because she knows that Sam is kind of, she knows that. Sorry, what's his name again? I'm trying to remember.
Good point. I don't know.
Dave, Josh. I don't know
all the other names so well.
Yeah.
Dang, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Hold on.
I know.
It starts with a C.
Charlie.
Ouch, Charlie.
Yeah, so,
that one really hurt.
Yeah, Sam could have been like, Charlie, just so you know, I know, because she kind of knows that he's still kind of into her a little bit, but like, she could have said something to be like, just so you know, we have past history, but no, that just doesn't happen, and it's like, then he finds out about it later, and he's like, wait, what? That would have been good to know about earlier. It's like,
damn. Well, that doesn't justify his absolute.
Oh no,
though. It's crazy.
No, that was the biggest fumble of all. Yeah, it was horrible. It was awful.
I like the dad character, Charlie's dad. I liked how he just called the boyfriend a pussy when he was outside. He's like, that guy's a pussy. I don't know.
yeah.
And I liked when Charlie was like, Can I have $30? And he was like, $20? What do you need $10 for?
Yeah.
It was funny. He had some funny lines.
Yeah. Well, I like that he's a very like, I like the dad character a lot too. He was really good. And it ends up giving a 50 spot for that, which is like, that was nice. That's right.
But I mean, so the ultimate realization we have at the end, where it's like, this is the reveal.
Mm-hmm.
That was quite effective to me.
Extremely effective, yeah.
Because I was like, whoa, because he was thinking about, because when Sam was rubbing his thigh, and then it cuts to the ant, I'm like, what is going on here? I'm like, and then
it does that, and then it does it in a way that like. You're like, oh, that's kind of weird, but like,
at first I was like, oh, that was a weird editing choice, but then I was like, oh no, that was very,
because it comes back to that. The editing in this is extremely good, by the way. Of ways of telling a story, phenomenal. Also, shot on film, and this movie looks beautiful because of that. So big props to that also. but yeah, so the because they one of the themes, one of the things that Charlie's doing is that there's a lot of things and times that he just remembers his aunt who he was close to. Um, and he's there's parts about that make him sad because um he sees his sister's boyfriend slapping her, and he's like, hey, that happened to aunt, I can't remember, his aunt. He's like, yeah, she had a bunch of people that treat her like crap. And then there's just other things throughout the movie that kind of just reinforce that, him thinking about when he's tripping on LSD. He basically, it's just like an unfiltered flashback
Yeah.
to the point where he just like falls asleep on the snow. Um, and then and yeah, and then it's so a lot of stuff just reminds him of his aunt died in a car crash, and it's like a lot of it is him blaming himself on that because it was like his birthday and she went out for. But then there's small hints to it dropped throughout that they realize in retrospect. One of the things that he says that like he says to Sam that like you and I are like really like there's a lot of similarities
Mm-hmm.
in a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that we've dealt with. And because she tells him that she was 11, her first kiss was when she was 11, and it was her dad's boss. So she's been, you know, she had been assaulted. Um, and as it turns out, that's kind of the revelation that through the editing kind of tells us that, um, through just how the scenes are sort of put together and like reframed in context, and it's just like kind of it's kind of horrifying.
Yeah.
Like it's a horrifying revelation. But it's
For real,
super,
because
like you
it's
said,
so off-putting.
extremely effective.
Because like, oh, this is the moment we've been waiting for, right? With
Yeah.
Charlie and Sam, and then
Mm,
it's just like it blindsides you with the actual realization, and it's like,
right.
oh, okay, now I don't feel good about this.
Right. Yeah. All that unresolved, that whole his emotional lack of resolution with any of that happened to him when he was a kid. Um, and that is also his best friend had committed suicide the previous year. Um, and then,
Right.
um, yeah, so it's like he hasn't really obviously hasn't processed the stuff where he was assaulted when he was a little kid by his aunt. But then there's the whole like she died, I feel responsible, but it's also the feeling of like but what if I wanted her to die? So that it's just like layers of complication on top of this feelings, which is like you're extremely realistic in terms of what like abuse, what I'm know of what abuse victims go through
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how they have to process everything, and it's just like, yeah, it was heart wrenching. I mean, it was super well done, I thought.
Yeah.
Um,
So I love that. That's obviously the core of this story is that, but we
yeah.
also have some interesting, compelling stuff with Patrick too. That
Mm,
whole side story where he's like, you learn that he's gay and he has this like hidden relationship with this popular kid,
he's the
jock
quarterback
guy.
of
Yeah.
the football team.
And then it's like they eventually end up getting caught by the father, and the father beats up his kid. He
Mm.
runs off, and then he like pretends like he wants nothing to do with him at school. His friend trips him, and he doesn't stand up for him, and just he throws a slur at him too. It's just,
Yeah,
and then there's that whole scene, which is ultimately what gets Charlie back in the good graces of the group.
because
Yeah,
he defends him. Yeah,
but I thought that story was really interesting too.
yeah. I like that whole like one of the first times uh that made me pretty emotional was like that the where he was like bringing him, he was just like Charlie was being brought along to like places. He's just like, yeah, let's go out, let's go hang out. I'm free now. I don't have this jock to, I don't have the quarterback to think about anymore. And yeah, just that whole scene with them just talking, and then he just suddenly just kisses him, but then he just like breaks down.
Mm.
I was just like, man, that hits so. It's just like, yeah, really powerful stuff when it comes to that. And
Yeah,
then
and it's
they
just
just continue to spend time, and then after that they just continue. It's basically like Charlie helping him just cope and deal with everything that, again, that's sort of putting into frame that the quote of, the love we think we
mm,
accepting the love we feel we deserve. It is like, Brad didn't end up being, I think his name was literally Brad. It just ended up just not, um not having the courage to stand up to and tell his parents, and they having to keep it secret, and like, and then just treating him kind of like garbage afterwards.
and
Horrible.
it hits well. It's effective because Patrick's character is always like the comedic relief guy,
Mm.
and he's always been welcoming of Charlie, getting him in on things. He's been very.
It's it's sort of a subversion of the gay best friend trope.
Mhm.
Like, he's not just the wisecracker. He's not just like sassy. It's a very like layered character as well. Patrick is. So
Yeah, because you expect when you introduce him, and he's just like he's mocking the teacher, the class
mhm,
clown thing. You expect him to kind of be, or I expect him to kind of be like one note type of character,
right.
maybe even a little antagonistic. Like I didn't know what the relationship was
Mm,
gonna be. Um, but he's like almost immediately accepting of Charlie actually,
yeah.
and very supportive.
Well,
Uh,
he's one of the ones that stands up for, stands up for him at that party when Sam is like realizes that, like, I don't think he has any friends. Like,
mhm.
his best friend killed himself. He just straight up tells her that. He's like, yeah. And he like kind of makes a joke of it too, and it's like, it's one of those moments where it's like, oh no, I get that you're making a joke, but that's actually kind of sad and not funny at all.
Hmm.
It's sort of like, I was like, oh yeah. So yeah, and then Patrick is the one that, like, it's like, hey, you made a bunch of new friends now. Like, so yeah.
Yeah. So I loved it. I mean, I loved in the beginning how it was more wholesome. It's like, oh, we see
Mm,
shy, anxious boy get
mm-hmm.
brought in, and he's into do more stuff, and he's getting happier and everything. And then you get more depth as they peel back the layers. I like kind of every stage of it,
Yeah.
and yeah, it does a good job of getting you in there,
Mm-hmm.
and it lulls you in a bit. It gives you teases of the tragedy and how he's like constantly reliving these events. But then it really, yeah, it goes to another level at the end. So
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think, again, is sort of like, that's one of the things in how it was shot and lit. A lot of this movie, there's just like a haze of nostalgia.
hmm,
It's very soft, very dreamy kind of in a lot of ways, but it's always that tinge of, it's nostalgia, but the pain side of nostalgia is sort of like always kind of on the back, kind of on the back burner of it. Um,
yeah,
and that in addition to a fantastic soundtrack, if I do say so
hmm,
myself. Um, yeah, those things just like, hand in hand, editing, the performances, it all really all comes together. Just just a really nice movie
there's a
at the end of the
nostalgic
day.
vibe to it too, in that it's all kind of a self-contained story.
Mm,
It's like there's literally like a cutoff point. Like they're going off to school, and he's
hmm.
not going with them. He's got over a
Right,
thousand days left afterwards. So it's really just
right,
about the experience and the impact they had on each other during the specific time.
right.
And it doesn't. So in that way, you could even see it as like this story is something that character looks back on in a nostalgic way. But then,
It's
yeah,
this is why movies are important. right? Like a nice small self-contained. Like this movie's under 2 hours. It's an hour 45, I think, and it's just like tells just a fantastic story that you can only really tell through the medium of film. I mean, granted, it's based on a book, but who would actually the guy who wrote the book both directed the movie and also co-wrote he also wrote the screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is fun. Who incidentally also went on to direct another movie that we've reviewed called Dear Evan Hansen.
I was gonna guess Dear Evan Hansen.
Not one of his finer works, if I do say so myself. But
you get
this was wonderful.
They were like,
wonderful.
we got a shy like a boy with.
Yeah, that's probably why. I'm gonna guess that's probably why they picked him. This is like, Dear Evan Hansen is just like this. And it's like, well,
doesn't hit the same.
No, not nearly as well. That's. So I also want to draw parallels to one of my other very favorite things
Lion
in the
King.
whole world. No, Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Even weirder.
Yeah, yeah. So because a lot of the poignant elements of Evangelion is kind of in how it makes you feel. It's not so much the granular. So because people will say, I love the story of Evangelion, but a lot of people will say the story is nonsense. The story doesn't really, because a lot of it isn't explained very well, and a lot of it's obscure and strange and weird. And I like it, but I am also still the first to admit that what's more important is the undercurrent of how it makes you feel. And to me, the messages are parallel here in terms of this movie and that, where it's like pain isn't and the trauma that you face is important, but it's not something that you need to let define you for the rest of your life. It's something that you can, with proper, the proper means, something that you can deal with and move forward from. It's important. It's an important part of the human experience, but it's not something that has to completely define you for your whole life. And I think that to me is like, especially that last letter that he writes, is really indicative. We didn't even mention that like a lot of the framing of this is like him writing letters to Charlie, writing letters to just no one in particular, which is, hey, dear Evan Hansen. He's writing a letter.
I thought it was
himself.
The way I interpreted it was he was writing it to his friend that killed himself. So that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, I guess that probably is,
because he says
that is,
friend.
I think ultimately
he says hello, my friend, or whatever.
I guess that is probably true.
I think that's what
I didn't
was
even
going for,
realize that. Yeah.
Which
wow. So is Dear Evan Hansen.
Even juicier. But I like it. Yeah, the framing is good. I expected more of it, like, because there was a point where they kind of he drops it for a while. I thought it was going to be like a consistent thing, but I like how they did it.
Yeah, I think I don't quote me on this, but I think the book uses that framing a lot more. But as I almost wonder, the whole book may even be like written that way, but I'm not positive. Apparently, the book was fairly controversial as well, like banned book list, because of the content. There's stuff about rape and assault, drug use.
Just because it's addressed at all. That's why
some people. Isn't that weird? To me, I'm like, I should read the book now that I've seen that, because like this to me it feels like such a good coming of age story in a way, because it's a coming of age story of people that were forced to come of age way earlier than they ever should have.
True.
Right, that's kind of the trauma of having to grow up too early by being exposed to things that you never should have at an age you never should have. So yeah, I don't know, it's weird to me that would be, but having not read it, I can't say, but I thought it I can understand why this spoke to so many people when it came out.
For sure.
So
Yeah, I do want to say again, one of my favorite scenes was the one where, after the dance and everything, she becomes his girlfriend accidentally. I just love the awkward energy that he brought with that, where she was like, "My parents are gonna be gone all night." And he's like, "Sure is a nice fire."
yeah, he's just like, he's kind of just like, I don't really want to be your girlfriend, but I don't have the courage to tell you that.
I'll just do it all, Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Shows make out. I guess I'm doing this now.
Laying on me and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It was wild, but yeah. So yeah, you want to do final scores?
I think so.
All right, 3, 2, 1, flip. 8.5.
Stuck to a 9.
There it is. Tarqaron score of 8.75. Good stuff. I think the only thing bringing it down just a little bit for me is just the, I don't know, the dramatics of it, where it's like the young adult, like you were saying before, where it's like say some kind of cheesy line and then going for the kiss.
Probably, yeah. The over.
Just a little
bit. There is schmaltz. Yeah, it's, to me it was subdued enough that it worked. It's still kind of, I kind of agree with you. Too much more of that, and I probably would be down. I probably would have put it down further.
That's where I struggle when I think of like other movies that give 9s. So that's why I was like,
there was
8.5 at least.
I felt a genuine sincerity from it. Like it didn't feel overblown, like too overblown. Whereas something like, say, like A Fault in Our Stars, for example, I would just roll my eyes at, because that entire
movie?
No, I haven't. I should. if I'm to critique
talking out your ass.
I am talking shit.
My girlfriend loved that movie. She showed it to me a couple years ago.
I can't. I just can't with it. It's just, I should give it a shot. I know I should, because I have talked plenty of shade with me and Dubs have talked about it quite a lot. But
you love shading things you haven't seen.
We do. We do. It's fun.
It's a problem. But I'll say it is
not
much.
Not really.
It's much more cheesy stuff in there that I took issue with. Ansel can go to hell.
Wow. Okay.
Ansel was like, he didn't work for me in that movie. It was just like too much like cheesy line. This corny.
But that's it's like Me Before You. It's like it's the same kind of stuff. Because like the reason that I make that claim is because I've seen more in the trailer. There's more in those trailers for that's cheesy than is in the entirety of this movie. I would say. So like that to me is like where I kind of base.
Yeah, I wonder what the trailer is like for this one.
Yeah, I wonder if it was like, if it's cheesy, like all schmaltz. It might be, yeah.
Yeah, so there's just like the slight layer of the young adult ification of the movie, but overall loved it. I mean, shout out to Rusty. All right,
yeah.
What a recommendation.
My Blu-ray's downstairs, so
you made it happen for us. So
he did, yeah. Thanks for doing that. That was it's a beautiful little movie, and
didn't you say it was like one of it was like their first date, kind of?
Yeah, I think so. Movie? Him and Lauren.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic first date movie.
Yeah.
I think.
How about that?
You get a nice gauge of. I guess you can get a nice gauge of. I mean, I don't know if they cried. I would have cried in the movie theater if I'd seen this. I'll tell you that. I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop when like when the nurse is like telling his parents about what happened. There's like no dialogue there. And it's just like
that hit.
Like right in my heart, man. That's tough.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, great movie. There you go. 8.75 is nothing to sneeze at. You don't come by it often.
Not at all.
I don't hand out 8.5s for free either.
No. Right. Don't hand it out for free. It's right. Yeah. No, I only hand out stuff like that to stuff that really, really resonates. So, but
thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review, and subscribe to the channel if you want more. In the meantime, what should they check out from our channel next?
I'm trying to think of another. Go check out a review of Anora.
Lenora.
Sure, that's another movie that I was emotionally affected, and
Absolutely.
it's good movie.
High marks.
Oscar contender this year.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for watching and take care of yourself. All right.